Hi guys, and welcome back to a new season of fly tying with me, Tellis, Katsogiannos. And well, it's almost a year, or we saw each other last winter. I hope you've had a good fishing season. Been both up in north of Sweden, Norway, and COVID situation ended up being okay for a while, but we'll see how next season is up. We're up for another winter of fly tying, and this year will be a little bit different. We'll not release every week with fly tying, but in between we'll also have way more tips and tricks regarding fly tying, how to be choosing the right hackle and the right hairs for different situations. A little bit more in specific comparison to when I'm tying the fly. Of course I mention it here and there, but it's going to be more specific why and what in what situations, and how to, for example, pick the right hair for the different steps in a wing, for example. Today we're gonna tie the world famous pattern called Pahtakorva, or my personal take on it. It's pretty similar or pretty much alike the original one, which was made by Mr. Mikael Frödins. I think most salmon anglers knows who that guy is and what it's done to the modern take on salmon flies. My personally first time I got a look at that fly, it is about 20 years ago, or a little bit less than that, but I've also fished it a lot, and I prefer to use it in a little bit more murky waters or cloudy conditions. So you can of course tie them with a little bit light fire brown, original, or as we're going to do tonight with dark fire brown, which is my personal favorite. I've also caught a few very good salmon with this, and my largest salmon is actually caught on the Phatagorva, a September fish in the river Mörk. So of course there's a few different variations of that fly in my box, and as it should be in most anglers. So let's get ready and start the new fly tie season. Okay, we're gonna start with plastic tubing 1.8 and 3 millimeters, which I have prepared here, and I cut them diagonally like this. Makes it easier to get the cone head on later. I'll start to put that thin one on, and then I will take the thicker one and slide that over. This one is also cut in the same way. It makes it easier to attach the thread and tying those tubes together than if it's just cut straight. This is a little bit see-through, which is a good thing. Then you can adjust here, but you want to have a certain amount of space here so you can actually fit the hook in there. I'm using a black standard 8/0 thread here, and I'm pinching that one at the same time that I'm locking it with the thread like this. Since the 3 millimeter tube is semi-soft or medium soft, it squeezes together and pinches very good here. You can also make sure that nothing happens here by putting a drop of glue there. In the original Pahtakorva, or a lot of variations, you will see the fly also has a red tag, body hackle and stuff like that. But if you have watched any of my videos before, you know that I'm pretty simple when it comes to using a lot of time and effort on the body itself. So what I want to do is use the hot orange tube I have here to get that red tag or butt without actually tying it. What I'm gonna do for the first part of the body is a body braid in the color gold. And I attach that on my side like so. Wrapping that tight. And just putting that down like this. Nice tight wraps on the edge of each other, leaving no gap, showing no thread. And as I attach this, before I do that, I spin it a little bit. And also now when I'm cutting it in particular, this makes it easier to get all the small strands cut at the same time without anything or too much left behind. Okay, the next part of the body, blended ice dub in fiery black. Just taking a little bit like this. And I'm just putting it like straight onto the body, straight onto the tube. I'm just wrapping around. This is a very simple and efficient way to use ice dub and all those synthetic dubbings. It takes a little bit of practice, but it's definitely worthwhile and definitely worth practicing. Okay, this wing will contain 3 different wings, even though it's the same color. I'm going to use dark fire brown. And the first I will tie in, I will choose a little bit stiffer hair from this side of this fox piece, and then I will go on to the softer side. The reason why I want to have a stiffer underwing is that will create good support for the rest of the fly. And when you're tying several steps, make sure that the first or all of the wings is not too thick, because the fly in the end will be very bulky otherwise. So I'm just cutting off there. I'm looking for that natural taper in the wing, taking off a little bit excess here. You can see there is a natural taper in this, but I will enhance it by putting it between my finger and thumb and slide the finger backwards. Now you can see what's going on here. You can see that the hair fibers has definitely moved, creating a more distinctive taper. Normally I tie forward or in reverse, so I tie it forward and backward and flip it over. But when the material is a little bit stiffer, I just put it straight on like this. There's pros and cons with everything. The benefit of this is pretty fast. If you have a sharp razor, you will just cut it off, close to. But the big benefit of this is that you can easily adjust the length by pulling. But the negative part about this is, of course, afterwork. You need to have a good razor to get that nice and clean. But also, of course, if you tie it reversed, which I will show you in the next wing, the fly is more, it's stronger, because the wing is attached twice. So what you can do in this step to prevent the wing from sliding out, if you're fishing it a lot, because after a while the flies get a little bit snags here and there. You can add a little glue there. That will of course make the wing stronger, or the attachment. I'm going to use 2 different kinds of flash in this fly, and I'm starting with tinsel flash in gunmetal, which is very dark metallic gray. Creates a very good look in these colors. 1 strand that I'm attaching with 1 wrap like that, folding, and 2 more. Make sure that these are not in the same length. It's important, otherwise they easily stick together in the water. For the first hackle, I'm going to use a badger rooster colored orange, which I've prepared a feather here. What I want to do now is looking for the right length of the fibers. In the end, when the fly is done, I want the hackle to be, the total hackle length should be about 1/3 of the total wing length. I will show you that more specifically when the fly is done. I want to have as much orange as possible in this. You can also, of course, use orange, but the badger creates a very nice, this badger color, which is dark in the middle, will create a very nice look of the fly. So what I did there is I cleaned the fly feather, and I made that little attachment point. Now you can see that the feather is clearly bending with the convex side towards me and pointing that way. The reason is, like, if you look at the saddle, you can see that natural bend. So the convex side of a feather is always the shiny part, or the up part. And why this is important, now when I'm going to duplicate the hackle or manipulate the hackle with the scissor, this will enable it to be way easier to get that hackle in a nice shape like this. You don't want fibers to be pointing everywhere. So open your scissor do not use the edge or the sharp cutting part. You just use the inside here. It's like a 90-degree sharp angle, but it's not cutting sharp. And slowly just pull that upwards. Now you can see that the hackle fibers are manipulated and way easier to work with. For every turn here now, pull back, pinch, and reverse your grip. Pull back. About 3 wraps here will cover most of that bump, and then the rest just beneath. As tight as possible. Hold the stem. 2 turns with my left hand here before I change my grip and attach it. Cut it off close. You can take your dubbing brush. This is special custom made from Colgate for me. Very good one. Okay, second wing now is of course the same color, but I'm using a little bit softer hair, which is on this side of that piece. This one is going to be longer and contain a little bit more material than the first one. And also, as I said, using softer hair. Pulling off a little bit of that excess hair, and now looking for that natural taper. Where is it? It's pretty good, so we'll just make a small adjustment here. Finger and thumb, pull the finger back. Once again, you will see that taper come to life. And then I'm measuring here. So what I'm doing now is cleaning by cutting off here. Makes it easier to tie in. The negative part now, remember when you're tying this takes a little bit more preparation. And you have to remember and see that short is now up and long is under, because it gets reversed when you are flipping this wing over like this. Widening it a little bit so it covers, not too much though. The benefit with this technique is it's nice and clean here, and of course the wing is attached twice. It is stronger, it is more durable like this. Starting to look pretty okay. Second flash, Saltwater Angel hair, copper blaze. I'm looking for, it's a mixed one, so you have different colors in here, but I just want to have 1 strand of copper. Putting that a little bit towards me. Straighten that out a little bit first. 1 turn with the thread, and I'm flipping it over, and 2 wraps there. Once again, make sure that they're not equally long. You can cut that one off since it's messing around a lot. And like that. Just blend nicely into the wing. Okay, the second hackle. This should have fibers that's a little bit longer than the first. And I'm once again using a rooster saddle. I prefer the rooster saddle because you have both these stiffer or very what's it called? It keeps their shape very nicely, but you still have those a little bit thicker fibers down here. First, I'm cleaning off what I know that I will not use, which is where it starts to get very fluffy. Okay, then I'm measuring. Remember that we're gonna create a collar of this hackle that's about 1/3 of the total wing length. I'm attaching that above on that top here and try to pinch it down just beneath on the tube. It gets a little bit better grip. Once again, you can see that the feathers now facing that way. You can see here, I can take one out. You can see it pretty easily now, the convex or concave side. There's the convex and that's the concave. You want it to be facing not towards you. You want it to face the wall, the end of the feather. Open the scissor, put that close, and then once again And then just pull your fingers a little bit. That will make it even more easy to work with. Pinch, new grip. So it's about 3 wraps of hackle on that big bump. Then the rest is just beneath here. There we go. A nice clean stem is always easier to attach or easier to see what you're doing. Then cut that off. Take your brush again a little bit. Brush the, not all of it, but most of that down. Okay, the last wing when you're tying with one color can either be longer, equally long, or even shorter. Different styles and techniques. It depends a little bit how you prepare the first 2 wings and steps. Last wing is going to be the thinnest one. It's not going to be very thick at all. And it's going to be about the same length as the second one. Good thing about tying with very thin wings in a lot of steps, you naturally will get a very good taper. If you're just using 2 or 1 wing, you will be needing to be even more careful when you're choosing your hair and preparation work, of course. A lot of thin ones will naturally be easier to shape, but it will take more time, of course. Putting that there. Now this one I will not widen as much. I just want that to cover a little bit and to help me to create that last drip shape of the fly. Just comb them through. I can see it's starting to get that teardrop shape most of us want in a fly. Right, the fly could be done now and just put on a cone head. Otherwise you will now use your cheeks. Jungle cock is the most common one. Now you can, by the way, see that the hackle here is about 1/3 of the total wing length. Not exactly, but it is in that general area, 1/3, and that will of course maintain that drip or drop shape very nicely in the water. Same with the cheeks. Shouldn't be too long or shouldn't be too short. For the human eye or for our perspective of what's good proportions, should be about the same length as the hackle, a little bit longer maybe. But of course this is all personal taste. If you don't like it, you don't have to do anything of this. This is the beautiful thing about fly tying and fly fishing. There's a lot of personal input into this. We all have different preferences. And I don't think the salmon really cares in the end anyway. Something fast is just swinging by. I believe in, of course, light fly or dark fly. Or if it's a heavy fly or a big fly, stuff like that. But the small details, I do not believe really those matter that much. I have a lot of friends that do believe that, and if that makes them fish better, it's important. That's the thing. Okay, what I'm doing now, I'm cleaning out here a little bit so it makes it easier to tie it in. But I'm not tying on an empty stem. I do want to use the hackle or the fibers a little bit to help me attach it. It gets it easier to lock it. And of course, if you have a rotational vise like I'm using here, it makes it even easier to see if it's aligned or not. This one needs to be a little bit pulled to get them aligned with each other. Right. This is another thing that's a very good friend of mine. Just classic Loctite, super glue, fast glue. In Sweden we can find this in more or less any supermarket. And I'm wrapping that thread, taking my scissor and cutting off the thread. And off with those. Right, before we put on a cone head, I'm going to show you something. Sometimes these can be exactly diameter as the cone head, which can make it a little bit tricky to put on. Let's see where that went. Love when you drop stuff. Okay, take your cone head. If this is the case that it's difficult to get it on, just put it in your scissor like this. Couple of small turns like this. That's enough. It will make a huge difference. That micromillimeter that you got off will make it easier to put on. Alright. There's a lot of people, or personally I do not like to put the cone head on when it's on the needle. I prefer to do that by hand. But it's up to you if you prefer the other way around or not. Now you can see how easily this slides on. Little drip of glue, carefully. Almost a little bit too much. And then just slide that on. While it's wet, take your scissor like this and pull it down. So you get it all the way down, creating no space in between the cone head, hackle and wing. You want it to be really tight and close. Okay, final step, of course, is to cut that off. Leave a few millimeters before you burn it. Or a few millimeters sounds a little bit too much. 1 or 2. Don't cut it too much though. It will make it difficult. So this is my personal take on the Phatagorva. And as you can see, I've used the dark fire brown, creating a little bit different tone in it. A little bit more classic. I've done one here in advance. And they are, of course, very similar to each other. But there is a little bit difference. I mean, a little bit lighter weather and a little bit darker conditions. The darker one, maybe. But it's everything is personal, what you prefer. Okay, thank you very much for watching. We'll be back very soon with tips and tricks. And of course, more fly tying is coming up as well.